Man, it is a real good time to be a gamer right now. Gotta say that this past week has been quite exciting. Black Myth Wukong was a pleasant surprise, turning out to be a whole heck of a lot of fun. But then on top of that, we got a bunch of new announcements, updates, and reveals out of Gamescom, the massive yearly convention held in Cologne, Germany. Hello, meine deutschen Freunde. Alles Gute. Yeah, the Germans sure love their video games, if you didn't know. Gamescom is officially the largest gaming event in the world, with some 320,000 attendees at last year's show, and even more expected to be turning up this year. There are a lot of people who go to Cologne to see some games, and as such, there are a lot of developers there as well, showing them. This year has been of particular interest for me because, simply put, there are a lot of games here that I'm really looking forward to, some of which are coming in the next few months, others later in 2025. So here are some of the news and announcements out of Gamescom that caught my eye, caught my attention the most, in no particular order. So first up, Dying Light the Beast. This is a new zombie smashing game from Techland, and I mean new. This isn't like an expansion or an update for Dying Light 2. It is evidently an entirely separate game, at least now it is. Initially, it did start production as a DLC pack, but during its development, after some leaks came out, they decided to make it much bigger, expand the scope, and they swapped gears, spinning it off into its own thing. That said though, this is pretty cool. They've also announced that anyone who purchased the Ultimate Edition of Dying Light 2 will receive Dying Light the Beast at no additional charge, completely for free. But regardless of its genesis, I'll play a new Dying Light game. While they're not without their faults, I have genuinely had a good time with this series in the past, so hey, looking forward to a new one. Now, what can we expect? Well, from the reveal, we learned that this will take place primarily in a rural setting called Castor Woods. They refer to this area as a tightly crafted open world featuring natural landmarks, small villages, and industrial complexes, all of which will offer different diverse traversal options for you to explore. Of course, the series' popular parkour system is making a return, and we can hop into some off-road vehicles running zombies over in a four-wheeler. Now, all of the open world elements will be here as expected. You will find bases to raid for loot, there will be safe houses to take a rest, towns and camps for you to chat with NPCs. And we will once again be playing as Kyle Crane, who after 13 years of enduring experiments has escaped and seeking retribution on his captors. In addition to tracking down our main targets, the wooded region we'll explore will also be full of all sorts of people and different factions, some friendly, some foe, and then the obvious foes being the zombies and some unnamed horrors that inhabit the woods. And we'll be taking on these threats with the staple melee combat system. There's ranged weapons, including guns, that will play a major role this time around. And we've got a few new tools at our disposal. Thanks to the years of experimentation, zombie DNA mixing with ours, we now have beast-like powers. So you've got things like an X-ray vision to see enemies through walls, and you can go beast mode, letting you punch and slam your way through hordes of zombies. Time of day will be as impactful as ever. While the sun is up, we'll be free to explore the region in relative safety, searching for loot. But then once night arrives, the darkness brings the hordes with much more difficult foes among them. Although it can all be made a bit easier if you play with some friends, as 4-player co-op will be making a return as well. So Dying Light the Beast, I think this looks pretty cool. I'm happy to play some more Dying Light. No release date as of yet, although we are expecting 2025. Have you ever wanted to get into game development yourself but weren't sure where to start? Well, today's sponsor is here with one solution. Boot.dev is a new way to learn back-end development aimed at tackling one of its biggest hurdles, and that is boredom. The idea is simple. They've gamified learning programming languages, turning the process into what feels like a captivating RPG. The platform is designed to get you writing a ton of code because, as they say, getting your hands on the keyboard and shipping projects is the only way to really learn. You'll learn back-end development from start to finish in the Python and Go programming languages. Boot.dev is fully online, self-paced, and as mentioned, feels like playing a game with clear goals and step-by-step guidance. As you progress, you'll earn experience, levels, achievements, and complete quests with global leaderboards to see how you're doing. And the creators of Boot.dev never want anyone feeling like they've spent money on something that isn't helping. So they offer a free demo of every course and its interactive features, along with a 30-day no questions asked refund policy if you change your mind. To learn more and check out Boot.dev for yourself, click on the link in the description below and use my code FORCEGAMING to get 25% off your first month or your entire first year if you choose the annual plan. Path of Exile 2, however, does have a release date. I can't believe it. I also cannot overstate just how pumped pumped I am for this. We may very well be here to witness the launch of one of the best ARPGs of all time. It's certainly possible if they deliver, and from everything that we've seen, it looks like they may very well do just that. Now, we now know that the game will be officially entering early access on November the 15th, which is less than 2 months from now. The announcement trailer told us a bit of story, while also showcasing a few of the game's 100 plus boss encounters. Now, what continues to amaze me here is that this sequel comes at a time where the original Path of Exile is doing better than ever. Quite literally, the game has continued growing in popularity year after year, and only just a month ago reached its all-time peak concurrent player count. It has been around for over a decade now and still attracting new players. It's just insane, practically unheard of. Grinding Gear Games is riding high right now without question, and if Path of Exile 2 delivers everything people love about the first game but improved with more content, well, GG, this game is primed to take the world by storm. Not to mention the fact that they're doing their players the unbelievable solid of making all cash shop purchases transferable between games. Anything that you have bought in Path of Exile will carry over into Path of Exile 2 and vice versa in the future. Now, this of course means that all of the cosmetics will carry over, but probably more importantly, all of those convenience purchases, they will too. So for example, if you bought some stash tabs in Path of Exile, you will have those unlocked when Path of Exile 2 releases. Most modern AAA game publishers, their heads would explode if you even presented them with this idea. It's crazy. Honestly, my prediction, Path of Exile 2 breaks 1 million concurrent players in the few days after it releases. At least, that's what I'm guessing. I think it will be that popular. I mean, they're literally taking everything good, everything loved about the original game, a game that just continues to get more and more successful, more and more popular. They're improving the visuals, they're polishing the gameplay and the combat, they're adding more content, there's a bunch of new classes, brand new mechanics, everything is just better. This is gonna be huge. I cannot wait. November, when is it? 15th. Can't come soon enough. Meanwhile, Blizzard's over here hoping we don't forget about them, and I won't, don't worry, Blizz. The new expansion for Diablo 4, Vessel of Hatred, launches about a month prior to Path of Exile 2, which should be more than enough time to play through everything a few times over. During Gamescom, they released an overview trailer going into some detail about some of the new stuff we can expect. The new region, Nahantu, will consist of 6 large separate areas, 4 of them being the deep jungle, and then the other 2 these sprawling red rock canyons. There will be a few new enemy types, including the Hollows, these tar creatures born from hell, the Dregs, mutated humans tripping out on poisonous plants, and then the Lakuni are back, transformed and reimagined from what we've seen before. As you might know, we're getting mercenaries. They overviewed some of the abilities of the 4 that we will unlock as playing through the campaign. The basic archetypes being a tank, archer, berserker, and a demon mage child thingy. There's also this cool reinforcement system. This sounds pretty neat actually, where you can attach a mercenary skill onto one of your skills so that whenever you use your skill, the mercenary then shows up using the skill that you've attached to it. The mercenaries are also going to have a skill tree that has a bit more customization and depth than what D3 had, where you just picked from 2 options every few levels. And then there is the Dark Citadel, this being the big new endgame feature for the expansion. It's essentially a large co-op dungeon designed for 4 players. There will be puzzles that require multiple people. So say one person stands on a pressure plate while everyone else goes to the other side and flips a switch. And the bosses will have mechanics that require group coordination as well, with things like damage soaking or reflecting attacks back onto the boss and trying to coordinate your positioning with your teammates. Basically, they can just take everything that World of Warcraft has done with their group dungeons with boss fights that require coordination over the past 20 years, and they can toss some of those mechanics into some Diablo fights here as well. They're also adding a party finder feature where you can search for players for activities such as the Citadel, but there's also categories we saw for dungeons, season events, world exploration, boss fights, or just whatever you want. This is a search and invite from a list system, not a queue and get randomly matched into a group one. I mean, for sure, I will play the expansion, I'll level up my barbarian, I'll see the new zones, and I'll try this co-op dungeon. I'm expecting at least a few days worth of content, and maybe I'll be surprised and there's more up their sleeve that they haven't revealed yet, although I'm not counting on it. Vessel of Hatred will be launching on October 8th. Yeah, I think if I get a week, that'll be, boy, but for like the $50 that they're charging, maybe that isn't enough. I got to reevaluate my relationship with Blizzard games at some point, right? Maybe eventually after 30 years. All right, Arc Raiders. Here's another game that I've been keeping tabs on for a while. This is the upcoming PvPvE third-person action survival shooter. That is a mouthful. Well, it now has a release window as well as a not too far away upcoming playtest. Between October the 24th and the 27th, we will finally get the chance to try out the newest game from Embark Studios. Now, it's gone through some genre shifts over the last few years, but it is nevertheless, I think, still looking pretty great. I love the style, I love the setting, I think the visuals are amazing, and I even like the new genre that they're going with. While it was originally pitched as a PvE-focused looter shooter, which I would have enjoyed, it's now pretty much a full-blown extraction game, which I also enjoy. I like extraction games. In the most recent update, they are describing Arc Raiders as follows. You play as a newly enlisted raider, fighting for survival while scavenging planetside, hunting for loot and resources that must be extracted safely. Standing in your way are these Arc machines as well as other players. You'll progress by successfully bringing resources back to your colony, where you can then trade your valuable loot with NPCs, embark on quests, upgrade and expand your chambers, and grow your character to suit whatever particular playstyle you enjoy. There's going to be solo as well as group play options, and from what they have said, it looks like the game is just going to have the typical survival extraction gameplay loop and mechanics, with things like you having to pay close attention to your surroundings, listening for the sounds to distinguish what's AI, what's other players, and then reacting accordingly. They also say that the gameplay is, quote, tactical, visceral, and grounded, with a rich and playful sandbox of gadgets and tools beyond just guns and ammo. So Arc Raiders is scheduled to release in 2025. It'll be priced at $40. If you want to check it out early though, as mentioned, you can register for that October playtest. Registration signups are available right now. Just head over to the Steam page. I think this game looks really good. And yeah, even though I would have liked a PvE co-op focused looter shooter, I also like extraction games, so I will check this one out as well. We got some new trailers and interviews for Atomfall, a new game from acclaimed studio Rebellion, who's probably best known for one of my favorite guilty pleasures, the Sniper Elite franchise. I don't even know if anyone considers these games any good anymore, but I enjoy them. Well, the developer is taking a break from nearly 2 decades of slow-mo X-ray headshots to try something a little different. What if Fallout was more of a sandbox and took place in a small countryside English village? Well, that's about what they're delivering here with this brand new game, from what we can tell. They're calling it a survival action game inspired by real-life events set 5 years after the Windscale nuclear disaster in northern England. But you know, this is a fictional alternate reality timeline version of that, where we will be exploring this quarantine zone, scavenging, crafting, bartering, fighting, and talking our way through a British countryside setting filled with bizarre characters, mysticism, cults, and rogue government agencies. The bullet point list of features include a player-driven mystery. Will unravel a tapestry of interwoven narratives through exploration, conversation, investigation, and combat, where every choice has its consequences. We'll be exploring this green and unpleasant land, the picturesque British countryside with rolling green hills, lush valleys, and rural villages belie the dangers that await you, and we'll be searching, scavenging, and trying to survive as we scavenge for supplies, craft weapons and items, and fight desperately to make it out alive. I mean, I'll be honest here, I think this looks really good, to the point that I'm surprised there aren't more people talking about it. Like I said though, Rebellion is an interesting studio making games that are seemingly at least somewhat popular, at least amongst what are practically gaming boomers such as myself. Their 2 long-running franchises being the Sniper Elite franchise and the Zombie Army. They might not be the best games, but I think they're pretty solid, and they're at the very least fun to play. I've always really enjoyed them. So I'm hoping for the best here, because I think this idea and what they've shown has a lot of potential. Atomfall is scheduled to release in March 2025. There was a lot of new stuff for Monster Hunter Wilds, a bunch of gameplay videos, previews, and live streams that were released. I myself actually have some hands-on impressions coming in later this week, so I'm gonna save most of the Monster Hunter discussion for that video. I will say though, beyond all of the gameplay stuff out of Gamescom, we also got a new official trailer which revealed La Barina and the Scarlet Forest. So the Scarlet Forest is a new area outside of the previously showcased sort of grasslandy region. This is a dark, misty forest, which I think looks pretty nice. As for the boss, well, it's a giant, creepy, fluffy spider that's butt also turns into a rose. I don't know, man. This thing is sick looking, really cool design, and some great animations on display here. I mean, look, Monster Hunter World was phenomenal, and this is looking even better, so suffice suffice it to say, things are shaping up nicely. I'm very excited for its full release in 2025. And as mentioned, I will have some further discussion about Monster Hunter Wilds in just a few days, so stay tuned for that. All right, we finally have some actual gameplay footage for the upcoming Dune MMO. They released a full 25-minute video going through various parts of the game. We saw the early steps of making a character, playing through the tutorial, and getting started with the typical survival crafting loop, which by now is well-worn territory. You'll go out, you gather the basic resources to make the basic stuff, which makes you stronger, letting you explore more dangerous places to get higher tier resources to make higher tier stuff, so on and so on and so on. Mixing things up a bit are of course the Dune setting. We're on this big sand planet with sand worms that prevent you from leaving certain areas until you craft the means to bypass them. Their gathering system makes use of a cutter ray that makes the process a little more interactive than just walking up and like hitting E or something. Essentially, you scan objects and then they give you lines to trace along to harvest those materials, which I just think is it looks cool. It's sort of like a more interactive form of resource harvesting. They also showed some NPC bases. Think about like Far Cry style, starting by scouting out with binoculars, marking enemies, and then going in and clearing them out to gather valuable loot. We saw both melee and range combat, and well, to be honest, it looked a little stiff. Like, not terrible for an open world survival game. The ranged at least seemed totally passable. Melee, on the other hand, looked very rough. There's no denying that. Although jank and rough combat is pretty much a feature of the survival genre, it seems, so I'm not completely writing this off. And you know, maybe it feels better to play than it looks. Copium engaged. Base building, that got showcased. That we will be utilizing a hologram template system where you place down sections of the base that can then be later filled by other players who bring in the proper materials. This looks really well done. You can even blueprint a base to drop the entire thing, a hologram version of it, anywhere else that's buildable. They showed a more advanced base full of crafting, refining, and processing stations, fabricators as they're calling them. They then build an early version of a sand bike, which is used to traverse the sands and zoom by those early game sandworms. We saw a couple world events like the crashed ships where valuable loot comes down from the skies, and surrounding that is PvP enabled areas. At nighttime, there are these police forces that scan the planet, and if you get spotted, they'll call down troops to your location. And then we also saw players running away from the sandworms, which was cool. And then they briefly jumped to some later game footage. So we saw some ornithopter flight in action with players flying towards a testing station, which are like the game's version of dungeons, where groups of players go in to clear out enemies, collect some loot, and uncover some lore. I loved the visual diversity on display here. This area was full of greenery, which was nice to see. And then we saw them take a quick stop by one of the game's 2 social hubs where they can meet players, trade, form guilds, talk to NPCs, unveil the story, trade with vendors, and pick a faction that you want to fight for. And then finally, they wrapped up with a super brief section highlighting what the endgame guild versus guild spice harvesting is going to look like. Putting aside the fact that there are some real stiff looking parts of the combat, I think generally this looks like something I'd want to play. It's clearly a full-on survival game and has many of those rougher edges that this genre is known for. Those aren't off-putting enough to me, and I'm still looking forward to getting some hands-on time with the game. Hopefully soon, we'll see. Beta testing is currently underway. As of now, the game is scheduled to release sometime in 2025. One real big surprise for me was a brand new trailer for No More Room in Hell 2. This game looks and sounds fantastic. All right, so the basic premise here is you've got massive maps loaded to the brim with deadly zombies. 8 players are dropped in, spread out, all far away from each other. You have to then sneak, fight, and try to survive long enough until you can group up, complete objectives, and attempt to get out alive. The further you get towards that, the harder things get, really requiring you to work together. You're not going to be soloing this stuff, and the game has permanent character death. That's the basic premise. It sounds and looks so cool. So Power Plant is going to be the first early access map they're releasing, placing 8 players at the outskirts of a massive map in rural Pennsylvania. You'll have to find your way to your teammates using not only your senses, your sight, and the audio around you, but there's going to be in-game proximity voice chat. The more of you that there are, the better your odds, because as you push further into the map, the difficulty of things will be increasing. So you'll go around gathering weapons and equipment, moving your squad towards the extraction point. If you survive and get out alive, you get to keep your character and everything that you collected. If you die, it's all gone forever. Looting supplies will level up your character, and then every run that you complete improves your chances of survival on the next one as you get access to equipment caches and special starting gear. They promise as well that this is not going to be easy, that even a single zombie is a threat. A crowd of zombies can tear a group apart. The undead can see you, they can hear each other, and making 2 too much noise in any capacity will draw in the hordes, ending your run. Best of all, this is the latest endeavor from Torn Banner Studios. They are the developer of the Chivalry series. This team has made some great games I've really loved, so I'm excited to see this one. It's basically a co-op extraction game in a zombie survival setting. It sounds brutal, and I can't wait. All right, so those are some of the big heavy hitters for me, the things that I am the most interested in immediately at least, but there were plenty of other things that very well could have made the list. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 released 25 minutes of some fantastic looking gameplay, this being the sequel to the wildly successful, immersive, story-driven action RPG set in medieval Europe. This is looking very good, expanding upon the series' authentic first-person combat and epic cinematic storytelling as you live the life through the eyes and actions of Henry. Sniper Elite Resistance was revealed. I told you this is a guilty pleasure series of mine. This one will include all the expected stealth sniping action, but focuses on a hidden war far from the front lines, deep within the heart of occupied France. Crimson Desert got 4 new gameplay trailers showcasing various boss fights. This, of course, being the new game from Pearl Abyss and their first crack at a non-MMO. Maybe they made, this is the first one I know about. Certainly pulling some lessons from Black Desert Online though here in the combats, just adding a bit more wrestling and grappling to it all. Looks pretty good. Borderlands 4 was revealed. Not a lot to say here though. It was just a brief cinematic trailer. Now we know officially that it exists, but that's about all. There was also some 4 pretty interesting looking new games revealed. We Harvest Shadows, a first-person farming horror game. You live as a recluse building up a farm. The twist here being the surrounding woods are full of creepy monsters. There was King of Meat. I don't know about this name. This is a co-op action combat game where you play through these user-generated dungeons, taking on a variety of challenges. This is also, mind you, the first non-MMO that will be officially published by Amazon Games. Masters of Albion is a god game from the one and only Peter Molyneux. What could possibly go wrong? And then REANIMAL, a horror adventure game from the creators of Little Nightmares. This looks really neat as well. Outside of that, I think also of note were some trailers and updates for Indiana Jones. Stalker 2 got a demo. We got some Avowed hands-on impressions, which actually are all shaping up pretty good, it seems, and some updates for Delta Force Hawk Ops, which basically is like new Battlefield for people who like Battlefield. That's pretty good. And all of that is far from everything. There is a much larger list of games I've not mentioned here that also got updates or reveals over this past week. But this list here is pretty much everything that I'm most interested in myself, and frankly, it's all more than enough to have me pumped for the coming months and year of new releases. Yeah, like I said at the top, it's a good time to be a gamer. So yeah, that's my list, but what are you looking forward to? I'm especially interested if there was anything good looking that came out of Gamescom that didn't make it here into this video. Any recommendations? Let me know. Love to hear about some new games. I'm happy to be excited about games. You know my shtick by now, right? I like games. I like looking forward to games. So if there's some games I should look forward to that I haven't talked about, let me know below. But that's all for today. Thanks again, as always, for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you all next time.